welcome to the Codedseat show where we talk about diverse topics that will bless our soul, especially the youth. Tonight we have a very beautiful and awesome two men in our midst that we're going to have discussion around so many questions that are bothering many of us around the world. So many questions that are bothering us all around the world. We all know that because of this deadly virus, many economies, many individuals are in crisis, and we don't know where to go. We don't know what to do. Many believe that our economies have failed us, and as a result, we've lost hope. Many are also in various dilemmas as to the vaccine. Should we take it or should we leave it? And many also still want to understand the origin of this COVID-19 virus. Where did it originate from? I mean, is it man-made? Is it something which is natural? Tonight, we are going to understand all these topics or all these dilemmas over here. So this is the Codedseat show, and we have two guests in our midst tonight. And before I introduce them, ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button so that anytime we post any video, you'll be part of those who will get it first. So we have Dr. Isaac Ampaabeng here with us. Dr. Isaac Ampaabeng is a senior development scientist at the Forensic Testing Service here in the UK, and he has his specialty in microbiology. So as you can see, we have the right guy in the studio today to answer all your questions. And our second guest is Mr. Samuel Nugba, who is what's it called? Reliability engineer at Jet2 group of companies. So viewers, without much ado, move straight to our guest, and I'm going to begin with Dr. Ampaabeng. Doctor, good evening.
Good evening.
I hope all is well.
By the grace of God,
we thank God.
Thank you.
Before we begin anything, even though I've done a short introduction, can you tell the viewers a little bit more about yourself?
Thank you. So, as you rightly said, my name is Isaac Ampaabeng. Currently, I work at Forensic Testing Service here in the UK. So not much to say, but the background you rightly put is microbiology. Yeah. So I studied microbiology at the University of Bradford here in the UK, and then did my research at University of Huddersfield, also here in the UK.
Oh, that's very awesome. We can see that Doctor is loaded tonight. And I believe by the end of today's show, many of your questions will be answered. Now let me move on to our second guest, Mr. Nugba. Mr. Nugba, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, my brother.
Oh, good. Nugba. So Nugba, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Apart from the fact that you are a reliability engineer at Jet2 group of company, is there anything that viewers need to know?
Not really. I mean, in terms of profession, I have no right being here, but I think my reason being here is the interest in the topic of discussion, the interest, and also to add a different dimension. To spice up discussion, and that's why I'm here. So there's nothing more to say apart from the introduction you've already made.
Okay. That's it. So ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it from the horse's own mouth. You've heard it yourself, Dr. Ampaabeng and Mr. Nugba. So we are going to begin the discussion. So Doctor, I'll begin with you. We've had conversation with a lot of people, and it looks as if some of the questions that are bothering them, like you can see a common theme in the questions that are bothering many people, especially when this crisis started. History tells us that there are so many crises that has occurred in history. We're talking about the Ebola, we're talking about the SARS, we're talking about the polio, we're talking about even the HIV/AIDS. These are all viruses that happened in history, and multitude of people die compared to this current COVID-19. But when we look at the action that is taken by the entire world towards this COVID, is there anything fishy about this current COVID?
Well, in terms of things being fishy, there are a lot of very nefarious people around the world, so I can't actually vouch for every single individual on the planet Earth. But what we know is that there has been a serious outbreak, viral outbreak, and scientists will have to work around the clock to find, a lasting solution to the problem. There has been a lot of theories regarding how the pandemic started and what would also follow. We are at the moment very unsure of most of the things that come about, especially in this era of social media. Anybody can just get onto the social media and then start saying anything. But more importantly, we know that viruses do exist, and viruses could actually spring up and cause infection like we have experienced and we are still experiencing. And we also know that viruses that cause respiratory infections are very, very dangerous. They are very deadly, because when they seize up your ability to breathe, that's the end of you, because our life actually depends on our ability to breathe. So these viruses are very, very dangerous. That's another thing that we need to take note of. Apart from that, I will say that from what we are seeing and the research that has gone on around the coronavirus, we know that it is a virus that had existed so many years. It's a virus that has caused at least a few more pandemics that we know, like the SARS and the MERS. So we know that it's a virus that is already in existence. Okay. The only thing that we can say about this particular one is that it has changed its nature. It has mutated from the original virus that we knew. And this is what it's capable of doing, taking so many lives away.
Thank you, Doctor. Before you continue on, you said, the virus has taken a new phase, which means it existed before the one we already know. That means inside the room, that means by the scientists or those who are the front line, the gurus, they knew about this virus before, but just that it wasn't killing a lot of people, or it hasn't yet spread throughout the entire universe. So should we conclude, or should we believe that this COVID-19 existed before it became well known?
To some extent, yes, because the virus that causes COVID-19 is a coronavirus. Coronaviruses are a large group of viral family. Okay. So it's not as if it's an entirely new virus that has been discovered. No. Coronaviruses have been in existence from time immemorial. Even the flu, the seasonal flu that we have, belongs to the coronavirus family. They are part of that family, yes. So they are there. And the point that I was trying to make is that This very coronavirus that has caused the COVID-19 pandemic was the same virus, in fact, very, very similar to the virus that caused the SARS, SARS in China some time ago, some years back.
Yeah.
It is also the same variant of that virus that caused the MERS in Middle East. Yes. So it is a virus that is known.
Right.
It is not as if it's an entirely new thing that has come to the surface of the earth. No.
Doc, and when we're talking off camera, we were having a discussion about the nature of human responsibility, and you talked about the vehicle or the chain of transmission that needs to be broken, and we've seen it recently where there's been a mutation of the virus in South Africa. There's been a mutation of the virus in Brazil. And there's been a mutation in UK, which brings about a different variant, a different challenge for the scientists, the doctors, and even the individual who ends up contracting the virus. I think it's pertinent to mention it at this point about the chain that we discussed off camera.
Right.
Yeah. So that the viewers can understand how the mutation comes about.
Okay. Okay. The subject of mutation is very broad and quite deep.
Sure.
So we might not be able to go into the microbiology of it. But for the purposes of our viewers, what we can say is that what viruses like to do best is to survive. Just like any one of us, we all want to survive in the environment that we find ourselves. We want to continue existence. So viruses also want to continue their existence. Their main aim by the activities that they cause is not to kill the host.
Sure.
Okay.
Their main aim is to live, and they live in a host. It is also very important for me to mention that viruses are incapable of independent existence. They cannot live on their own.
Right.
So they need to live in a susceptible host where they can attach themselves and they can do that. So what happens is that when viruses find out that their survival is being impeded, or their very existence is being attacked, they have to change their nature so they can survive.
Okay.
Like we humans, if you're living in an environment where people are attacking you, you live in an environment where your life is at stake, you will definitely move on.
That's
you will
right.
definitely move to a place of safety. Viruses, because they can't move to a place of safety, they tried to change their nature a bit so that they can live at that time. By doing that, the very nature that we know them to be becomes different, slightly different. And that is when we say they have mutated. Sometimes there can be a minor mutation. At other times, there can be major mutation. When minor mutations occur, then we say that a variant has resulted. A variant has come out. So the original or the wild type virus that was found in Wuhan, in China for the first time when the whole pandemic started, has now changed its nature slightly, and that is what we are talking about, variants in different, locations on the earth. What scientists have seen is that the virus has changed the nature of its attachment, how it's able to attach to the host. The virus has got, the coronavirus has got about 4 to 5 major proteins that it uses to survive. One of them, which is very, very significant, is the spike protein. The spike protein is what we see on the virus surface as spikes or some kind of untoward projections. So if you draw a coronavirus, definitely that is a distinct feature. So you see those crowns around it. Yeah. And in fact, it is those crowns that gives its name corona.
Oh.
So corona means crown.
Okay.
It means crown. So all coronaviruses have those spikes. And that is what they use to attach to the surface of the cell. And from there, they can infuse into the cell and cause the damage that they cause to the cell. It is this point of attachment, or this protein, that they are changing the nature slightly so it can give them a better point of attachment so they can infuse into cells. And because of that, we've got different variants of the virus. Now, for a virus to cause infection, yes, there are certain stages that it needs to go through. And that's where human responsibility also comes in.
Sure.
When we are in the face of a big pandemic like this. So first of all, viruses need susceptible hosts to live.
Okay.
Some of the hosts could be plants, some could be animals. In the case of the coronavirus, the susceptible hosts are humans and some rodents. We also know that they can survive in bats. But for them to infect another individual, they need to move out of their susceptible host. And they need what we call a portal of exit, a point of exit. So, for instance, if they are living in a human being, they want to come out maybe through the person breathing. So that's the point of exit will be the nose. They want to come out through the person maybe speaking. So the point of exit could be the mouth.
Yeah.
Sometimes some of the viruses would want to come out through bodily fluids. So like urinary, the urine, sweat, and they want to come out of that. But in the case of the coronavirus, research has shown that they come out through when a person speaks, when a person breathes or shouts, and some research have also shown that they can come out through the fecal samples, fecal products.
Yeah.
When they are able to get out of the susceptible host, they need to be carried by vehicles. They need to be carried by something in order to get to the next susceptible host. And that's where we talk about mode of transmission. The mode of transmission could be anything like air, which can blow the virus, and so we will call that virus airborne, meaning that it can be carried by air. Sometimes they get contaminated in water, they contaminate the water we drink, so at that point, that virus, the mode of transmission will be through drinking of water, contaminated water. Yeah. Sometimes the food we eat, so through drinking of the food.
Sure.
In the case of coronavirus, we are aware that it is airborne. That means that air can blow it and it can survive in air for a period of time.
Sure.
So when a susceptible host is close, they can land on the susceptible host and then get into the individual. Another way of transmitting the coronavirus, which we know, is by contact. So coronavirus can contaminate somebody's hand, and as the individual touches an object, it lays the virus there. Another person can go and then touch that same spot and gets the virus.
Sure.
So that's also another way of getting it. And so on and so forth. Where human responsibility comes in is what can we do to break this chain? If we're able to remove, even from this short illustration up to the mode of transmission, if we're able to remove one of these stages from there, the pandemic will terminate.
Sure.
Right. So now let's assume that we are not able to remove that. So the virus is now at the stage of mode of transmission. So It's been able to contaminate the air, it's hovering in the air. It needs a susceptible host. It needs another individual, another human being. So if there is no human being there at that point, then it means the virus will be hovering in air and finally will drop. And because it's incapable of independent existence, it dies. It cannot survive. And that's where, as humans, if we were to stay at home at that point where it's hovering in the air, then the pandemic will also break. And that's why lockdown comes in.
Sure.
So everybody should stay at home. If you stay at home, if anybody gets it, even if the virus is hovering in the air, there won't be any susceptible host around, and then it dies.
Yeah.
If that doesn't happen because of human dynamics, so we are all out in the community, we go into the shops, so you've contracted or you've come in contact with this virus hovering in the air, or this virus that is on the surface somewhere, on a formite. If you touch it, or if you come into contact with the virus, it needs what we call a point of entry. So it cannot just enter anywhere by itself. It needs a specific point where it can enter the susceptible host. So as humans, it can enter you through your nostrils, it can enter you through your mouth, it can enter you when you touch it, and then unfortunately touch your eye, and then it gets into the body. So these are the main routes of entry of the coronavirus: through the mouth, through the nose, and through the eye. Why? Because the virus point of attachment is usually on the mucosal surfaces, where we've got mucus. So it gets hooked onto the mucus, and that's where it begins to enter the human system. So let's say that all these have happened. Humans could not take responsibility, and the virus is inside the individual. Then the virus will continue to do what it wants to do best. That is to enter your cell and then hijack the cell. That's what viruses do. They go into your body and then they hijack the cell machinery. Whatever the cell can do for you, they are now going to instruct the cell to do a different thing to their advantage. So they seize the cell's machinery and then use it to propagate themselves, to do the things that they want it to do. It's just like an instructor goes somewhere and then starts giving commands, irrespective of the rules and regulations of the place. So it changes the rules and say that, no, this time around, I want you to do this.
That's right.
You do this. You do that. That's what viruses do.
That's right.
So they give a different instruction, different commands to what our cells are known to be doing. And they listen to the virus, and the virus keep on carrying, doing what it wants to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So based on what Doctor said about China taking a very strict measure on this whole pandemic thing, can we conclude, or can we come to a point to believe that most of the nations have failed their citizens? I'm asking this question because when we look at a country like Chad, immediately they heard of this whole virus in China, they closed their border. Okay, and when we look at the cases reported in China at the moment, it's not even up to 100, if I'm right. And a country like Taiwan as well, they have issues with China and all those kind of stuff. So they too, when they heard of it, they took that strict measure to close their border, and their cases are again very low. But when we look at countries like here, UK, US, and other countries, Italy, and all those kind of stuff, can we say that all those governments or all those nations have failed their citizens by not taking a strict measure on this?
I would say yes. I'll say yes. And Chad, Taiwan were not the only success stories, or are still not the only success stories. I think New Zealand were very successful in curtailing the viral spread and transmission. South Korea were also very successful. So yes, I think there is an element, like Doctor was saying earlier, that there's a human responsibility, and that human responsibility failed in the sense of taking the virus serious. Now, when we look at China, China is a major global force, and it's a major global force because things going in and out of it make it very valuable in global economy or in the eyes of global economy. Then you look at the aviation sector in Europe. Aviation sector in Europe is worth billions and billions of dollars or pounds or euros. Now, to stop that from operation, and to think about the consequences of employment and all this kind of stuff, I think played a huge role in not stopping this in not containing this virus early. When Doctor was talking earlier, he talked about the chains of transmission, and containment would have been one of the chains that we could have broken to turn this from being a pandemic to just being a local epidemic. We've seen similar cases with Ebola, where Ebola was kept, in the western regions of Africa and kept quite remote, and it did not. That chain of transmission was stopped, and I think the seriousness of this virus was not because I remember early on people were comparing it to influenza. It's just like flu. How many people die from flu every year, and 200 people have died from.
Right.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely a failure from the system, our governmental system.
Wow. Yeah. I think the little that I'll add to Brasam's submission is that this whole pandemic, if you look at it carefully, various governments have responded to it differently.
That's right.
To the best of their abilities. But I must say that they've done what they could, but of course some government did more than others in terms of curtailing the spread. And there were actually instances where the scientific community blamed their own governments for not taking their advice and so on and so forth. And this is an area of science. So I believe that, scientific principles should have been given credence.
That's right.
Governments ought to have actually listened to their own scientists within, their countries, and then what they should do in terms of, stopping the spread. So it's not as if government didn't do anything at all. They did something, but not enough, not as expected in order to, stop the spread.
Wow. That's very good. Just a follow-up question. Looking at the virus, HIV/AIDS, okay, we all know that it was, some believe that it was created in France, and it was tested in, Congo? It was tested in Congo. And the effect of the HIV virus was much in the African countries compared to these developed countries. So, and looking at this COVID or this, this virus, before this became a very big blow, I don't know if any of you heard that there was this projection that African or black people are going to be that much affected, okay? And it didn't turn out to be so. Okay, I don't know if, but it didn't turn out to be so. So, again, can we say that because Africans were not victim of this pandemic, that is why, let's say, maybe the whole world have now come in to find a solution to this thing, which is obviously the vaccine, and they are still fighting. The reason why I'm saying this is looking at the HIV, as I said, because it was, affected by just the black people, we didn't see the massive falls of these major economies, even though they were coming out with, vaccines and all those kind of stuff, but it didn't work out. So can we say now, because the developed countries are affected by this virus, that is why, everyone is coming in with their input to fight this spread of virus?
It's the way we look at it is multidimensional. In the first place, we need to understand that actually HIV/AIDS was worldwide.
That's right.
It was worldwide. It was in every continent, every country, so to speak. But probably because of certain factors, it so became quite prevalent in Africa more than maybe the Western world. So yeah, I do agree with you. Now, scientifically, or from the scientific point of view, HIV virus is quite different from the respiratory virus and, for that matter, coronavirus. HIV vaccines have not been successful mainly because of the rate at which the virus mutates. Okay, for a virus to be effective, for a vaccine to be effective, the vaccine should be able to work against the wild type virus or the virus that it is intended for, at least for a period of time. Okay. Now, HIV virus has been noted to mutate quite, regularly and quite frequently compared to coronavirus. So a number of attempts have been made to prepare a vaccine for it. But as scientists come out with the idea of the vaccine, before you realize, you sequence the HIV virus and the nature is changed. So you have to go back to the working board.
That's right.
To re-strategize. So it keeps on and on and on like that. Unfortunately, that is why that has not been. Now, when we come to the coronavirus vaccine, of course, if any country would support anything, the first they would do is what will be the impact on our own citizenry.
Sure.
So if, for instance, Europe are much more affected, then they would want to put all resources together in order to protect their citizenry before they think about any other. That naturally, that is a fact. So from that point of view, I think the response has been quite apt, probably because of that. And again, we also note that the coronavirus, the virus that causes COVID-19, like I said in the beginning, is not entirely new. There have been former pandemics. So based on that, scientists were already preparing for vaccines for them. A typical example is the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Okay.
This was a vaccine that was intended for MERS, the coronavirus that caused outbreak in Middle East in 2012.
Right.
Yeah. So they had already done some groundwork for that. But as they were in the process of doing that, infection rate just dropped. And so the vaccine had to be kept on hold.
Wow.
So they were at a point. So as soon as this pandemic broke out, at least they had something to fall on to start from where they ended before. And that actually helped.
Wow.
That, to add to that, modern day technology is now far advanced.
Right.
So the way we used to do things before is not exactly how we do things. Now, a lot of things are automated.
Yeah.
So things that you need to be there physically and do it, you can just instruct a robot to do, you put it in the robot and then you go home. The next morning you go and everything has been done. Yes. In my workplace, we do have a similar thing there. there is this machine we call extra hearer that can actually pipette all the things that you would have done according to the volumes that you want.
Okay. Wow.
So you can just program everything and then put it in the machine and just go home. By the time you can, it has done everything for you. And this is how advanced the world is.
Wow.
So previously, if it would take you maybe a month or so in doing a very simple thing, now with automation, you can do that within an hour.
Yeah.
So these are all factors that have come together to help with the development of the vaccine for the coronavirus pandemic.
That's very good. Our viewers, this actually answers my follow-up question. Even personally, I had this feeling like, because that's what we know, it takes a very long time to develop a vaccine.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about sometimes we have a debate with my brother over here. Like, it takes years to develop a vaccine. So how come this one has been quick? And based on explanation, the coronavirus, as you said, in 2012, they tried coming out with a vaccine, and at a point in time the infection rate dropped, so they have to put that on hold. And also looking at advancement in technology like the AI, artificial intelligence, and all this kind of stuff, they can now like these robots and all those kind of stuff, design something to speed up the process. So something that can take, let's say, a month or a week can take like hours. So based on that, we can now believe that the quickness of the vaccine is something. We can't add any theories to it based on what doctor said.
Mr. Champo, I think it's also pertinent to mention, because when we've had that debate in the past, I've maintained a line of argument.
Okay.
Not so much what Doc has said, because I said something to you in the past. That I said that it was based on a SARS, but I was wrong. It was based on a MERS. I think there are other vaccines that are based on a SARS.
Oh yes.
But my line of argument that
you said God.
Yes, I said that when this started. We are Christians and we have to bring that into the conversation. When this started, the amount of prayers we prayed, for God's intervention, because no one knew where this was going and no one knew where this was coming from.
That's right.
Right? So the amount of prayers we prayed, talking about the speed, for me, although the groundwork was already laid, but I believe that it's still an inspiration from God that we are where we are today. And that was one line of argument I kept having with my brother, because I said, look, we cannot overlook the fact that we've called on God. And many of the people who doubt the vaccine are religious leaders. So there is a massive contradiction.
Exactly.
There, we call on
the
God.
God answers you.
We don't believe.
This one is too fast. But what do we expect God to do?
Right now, the vaccination is just on very few companies, like the
Pfizer.
The Pfizer and AstraZeneca. It's like on these two. So what reason can you give today? Looking at France, looking at a country like Russia too is very good when it comes to medical experts. We'll get gurus from there. So what is happening?
I think there are more than Pfizer and AstraZeneca, as far as I'm aware, are the two main ones.
Yes.
There is also Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson has also come out.
Wow. And then there's also a Russian one. There's also a Russian.
There is a Sputnik.
And then I think there is if I'm not mistaken, there's a Chinese one as well, who have all based the production of the vaccine on the outcome of and the success of all these other vaccines. The one thing I can emphasize is that it's political. It's political, and that's why, because as you have said, people have realized that there is a lot to gain from vaccines. I quite remember when Pfizer announced that they've got a vaccine and it's 90% effective. The next day, I also read that they cashed out from the stock gains that they made from that announcement. So you've got to consider the monetary element to business, and then you've also got to consider the reputational damage to political announcements that come out. Recently, you mentioned the one with the European Union,
Yes.
Where they said that some European nations said that they found blood clots or issues of blood clots with the vaccine. Now, research has shown that over 7 million people worldwide have been vaccinated with the AstraZeneca vaccine specifically, and none have reported blood clots. Suddenly, the United Kingdom leaves the EU. They are the leading nation when it comes to vaccination globally, and then European countries that are in the EU suddenly report blood clots, and they all, almost at once stop or pause the vaccine. But then they don't just do that; they announce it to put further doubt in the minds of people. Now, whilst they are doing all this, the president of the European Commission is announcing for further output from AstraZeneca, saying that they are not getting enough vaccines from AstraZeneca into the system. So which is it? Do you want people to pause the program, or do you want vaccination so that you can catch up with the likes of the UK? Now, you talked about Germany being so advanced in science and not being ahead of the game like the United Kingdom. Number one issue could be down to uptake, could be down to the fact that people don't believe in the vaccine. The number two issue could also be down to distribution and logistics and effective planning, because we've got to understand that a whole campaign goes behind trying to get people to buy into the idea of injecting something foreign into their body.
Yeah, but we can't say that, when all these things started, a country like Germany hasn't been campaigning and doing everything possible
Who knows? But we can only talk based on data, okay, and talk based on facts. And the data you've presented is that they've got 5.2 million vaccines,
yeah.
But only 1 point something million have taken it up. So that can only be down to, so we know that the UK is successful in the vaccine rollout. Why? Because they pre-ordered the vaccines way ahead of time. Okay. Number two reason is that they had an effective plan. So they targeted the at-risk category and then decided to inject them first, and the uptake was huge. Okay. And that has been a massive catalyst for the success. Now, can the same be said for the Germans? I'm not too sure, but I think there's my point I want to rest on, and I'll let Doc do the scientific points, but the point I want to rest on is that from the news and the readings and the research that I have done personally, a lot of it stems from the political agenda of some of these nations. Okay, and of course the huge gains that there are to make with these vaccines.
Just to add to what you've rightly said, first of all, with the issue of blood clots. So, in clinical trials of vaccine development, you look at all these things, and according to AstraZeneca, there is no evidence to suggest that taking the AstraZeneca vaccine should cause any blood clot. But that is not to say that you can speak that for every individual,
sure,
because the reaction of the human body to chemicals is very different. So individuals will react differently to different chemicals. Even paracetamol, somebody will react to it, right? But I might not react to it. You give this, that's why people keep changing one medication to another when doctors find out that this is not suitable for you.
That's right.
So I'm not overruling the fact that it's the vaccine that is causing that or not. But the point I'm trying to make is that different people will react differently to even the safest medication that we have.
That's right.
That aside, we also want to look at statistics. We want to look at how many people have received the AstraZeneca vaccine and how many people have reacted to it, or how many blood clots have we got so far. So you're looking at over 7 million people having received the vaccine, and about 37 people having been reported of blood clot, especially, some have been fatal, others haven't been. But the point is, you will always want to weigh that. Is that the issue? For us to stop the administration of the vaccine, because this number of people, I'm not saying every life counts, every life is valuable, but we always want to weigh the advantages as against the disadvantages. Okay. Another point is that some scientists have raised this argument that every year we have this issue of blood clot. Even when there was no vaccine, people still have blood clots and they needed hospitalization. Some die as a result, and that's why some people are giving blood, thinners. So that is already a situation we have at hand. It's people's illnesses. It's an illness that affects people. So is it that those people have been triggered by elements of the vaccine, or they were going to have it anyway? Because each year people have blood clots, and people are on medication because of that. Some people are on blood thinners because of that.
Wow.
So as long as we don't have any direct evidence that it is the AstraZeneca vaccine that is causing that, I don't think we will be doing ourselves a great service by putting a stop to it. Because all the countries that stopped it have reconsidered their decision, and they're looking into it so that they can resume vaccinating people again. Okay, so that's the first part of the question. The second one as to why some countries, even though they've got the vaccine to dispose or to administrate to people, and still it's with them intact, they are not giving. It's got to do with mindset of people, and then it's got to do with how many cases of coronavirus they have had in the country. Okay, if you look at the number of cases and the lives that have perished in the UK compared to Germany, of course, UK's number is high. So everybody has had that mindset that I need a remedy, I need some kind of assistance that will help me live. But if in a country where the cases were not so high, people are already having that notion about the vaccine. So, but even after all, we didn't have it too much. Why should I bother myself? So it's got to do with all these things. And that brings us to this element of education. Countries would need to educate their people a bit more about getting immune. Because if we want to uproot, this coronavirus from the surface of the earth, we need to have good immunity. We need to have a very strong immunity. People are talking about herd immunity, but who should receive or who should sit up for the herd immunity to come? That will not come if majority of the people don't go for the vaccine. And if all of us think that, no, I'm going to die when I go for it, nobody will go for it. But this is something that we need because we have not been able to effectively break the chain of transmission naturally. I illustrated the chain of transmission. If we remove even one out of the chain, this whole pandemic will halt. But as humans, and because of our dynamics, we are not able to do it. We can't. So people are dying, and we need something to help us.
That's right.
And it's one of these things. And it will interest you to know that when we get coronavirus disease, sometimes it's not the virus itself killing us. It is our own body system that is killing us. Our own body soldiers fighting against the virus end up fighting against us and killing us.
Wow.
So we need the vaccine to ply the immune system so that the whole exercise will not be a vigorous one. It will be quite, slowly. Okay? But if we wait for the virus to come into the system and the body is fighting it, because the virus is very stubborn, the body system will have to use a greater force, all the weapons it has in its arsenal to begin shooting the virus. And
I believe we are all learning so much tonight. We are all learning so much tonight. Again, we have with us Dr. Ampaabeng and Mr. Nugba. Dr. Ampaabeng and Mr. Nugba. By the way, Dr. Ampaabeng is having a YouTube channel, so you can follow him on YouTube, okay, on Facebook as well. So the name of the channel is Sunrise Reflection. Sunrise Reflection. Go there and watch some of the very important videos he has put over there. In fact, the last time I watched the video, I think you were trying to talk about emotional something, and you linked it to science. That was so powerful. So any statement or any point he tries to make, he links with it. Science.
I love science.
I hate science. Yeah. He tries to link everything that he's doing with science. So it's very, very important for our knowledge, for our health, and everything. So you can follow Dr. Ampaabeng about the Sunrise Reflection. And when you go on Facebook too, is his name, Dr. Isaac Ampaabeng. Dr. Isaac Ampaabeng, you will find him over there. All right, just to round up, I have these few questions before we round up, and I'll begin with again, Mr. Nugba, about because you are in the transport, industry. Right, about this vaccination passport. So again, Joe Biden, the president of the United States, they were giving him pressure to, sign an agreement for this vaccination passport. That is, if you don't get vaccinated, you can't travel anywhere in the world. And as I said, he has assigned a team to investigate into this matter, how this is going to help and all those kind of things. But we know that China has already begun the process. Okay, they've already begun the process that they issue this called International Travel Health Certificate. International Travel Health Certificate, and it's actually on an app. So if you vaccinated, you just have to download the app and then know what they are doing. Right. So based on this note, China, the world does not trust China like that when it comes to their, when it comes to privacy of data and all those kind of stuff. Right. So where we are now, is it likely that, because we know if the president of the United States agreed to it, that is it globally, okay? Yes, because they are a major force in the entire world. So how do you see this whole vaccination? Number one, is there a necessity for us to go for the vaccination passport in the first place? Is it a necessity? Is it necessary? Is it really important to even think about it?
Yes. The movement of people cannot be stopped. We live in a global society where connectivity movement cannot be stopped and limited to virtual appearance. It is just not possible. For example, someone might need to go to the USA to, if not to see family members for holidays. Holidays are very important for stress relief, but not just that. The holiday industry employs millions and millions of people worldwide. It's a massive source of economy for countries like Greece, countries like Turkey, and so putting a pause or not bringing out something that is effective to allow for the continuation of set industries could be very detrimental. So, okay, let's say those things cease and we don't have we don't bring in place something. Let's not call it a vaccination passport for now, but we don't bring in place something that allows, number one, people who have tested negative. Number two, people who have been vaccinated and their immune system have been built up to help tolerate the virus. Okay, if none of that happens, then no one will fly. Then no one will fly. Not just fly, then no one will travel, because the UK is not going to allow someone from South Africa to come in because of the fear of a variant. Brazil is not going to allow someone from the UK to go over for the fear of a variant. Now, the global economy up to now has thrived based on connectivity and the fact that we are such an open society. So there is not only the catastrophic impact of world market to consider, but there is the local economy to also consider. So people locally will be at risk of their jobs. Now, you mentioned that my job is in transport. My job will be at risk, not just mine. The families that are associated with that industry will also be impacted. Right. Now, I'm not speaking for transport to continue regardless of the pandemic. But what I'm saying is that for global economy to continue, transport is a very important vehicle.
That's right.
And you need, so I remember a friend of mine was going to Ghana and they needed to show a certificate that they have tested negative. Now, what is the difference between such a certificate and the certificate to show that you have been vaccinated? You know, we always try and draw links with the Bible and the end time, and you know, because
we will come there.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll just leave it there. But what I'm saying is that there is no difference between showing a certificate to show that you don't carry the virus and showing a certificate to show that you have been vaccinated. And I'm up for it. I'm really up for it because it allows for the continuity of growth and it allows for the continuity of connectivity.
Right. So apart from the fact that it will, I don't know, not motivate, force some people to get vaccinated, because as you are saying, people, that is their business, they travel all around, and some are saying because of the fear or the conspiracies around this whole vaccination, they are not going to get vaccinated. So if it comes out as a law, okay, that if you are not vaccinated, you're not going to travel, that means you have no choice. You have to get vaccinated. So number one, based on what you said, is to just not motivate but force. Okay, force people to what? To vaccinate them, as it will help the running of the economy.
Yeah, I wouldn't say force. I think everyone is entitled to their own free will, and even the our Heavenly Father who we serve is up for that, and He gave us our own free will as a human race or humanity. So I wouldn't force anyone to go get a vaccine or get vaccinated for your job, but you have to consider. You have to consider that is my argument founded on good grounds. Am I not going for the vaccine because of a valid fear, or is it based? What is your fear based on?
Okay, right, Doctor. Before I come to you, I think majority of the reason or the key reason why people are not conversant with this vaccine thing is that, as you said, fear. Okay, fear of being vaccinated, whether the vaccine will cause a harm to the immune system or something like that. Especially research shows that the black population are those that are running away from this or vaccination. And as I said, it all boils down to the fact that before the start of this whole lockdown and things, it was in the air that Africans are going to die more. Okay, and up to now, so how can we clear this thought of fear from the minds of the people? Okay, believe me, I was thinking the same, but based on this discussion, I'm trying to gather some momentum to go and get vaccinated. Do you get my point?
Yeah.
So how do we clear this thought of fear that something is going to happen to me, I'm this and that from the minds of the people, so that they get vaccinated?
I mean, for me, initially, of course, when it came out and you're hearing memories, because I'm not in the scientific field like yourself, I had an equal fear that is this suspicious. But with education comes ease. When you are educated in the field of the vaccine, not educated to the point of even a first degree, but when you have read about it and you have researched and you have not allowed yourself to be consumed or what was the word, infiltrated with poor information.
Okay.
This is the source. I asked someone, what is your fear founded on? Oh, I saw a WhatsApp video, and this, and is this kind of fake news? I would say that is hurting us, and that has kept hurting us throughout the pandemic. When we talk about, doctor was talking about transmission. If we look at the speed and the rate at which the virus has spread, it's all based on human responsibility. If we took it serious, and if we use the fear in the right way, okay, we will still not be in this mess a year on. Okay, so people say that they don't want to get vaccinated. They are the same people breaking the
protocols
and the protocols that have been set in place. So what do we do as a society to move forward from this? Or are those people enjoying the system that we are in now? This is the question we have to ask. So fear can only be eradicated, number one, based on spirituality. Okay, the Bible. Are you someone who is God fearing? If you are not, I suggest you start that journey. Bible says, "I have not given you a spirit of fear, but one of boldness."
But hold on that. Let me ask Doctor this question. Based on the Bible, just as you said, what can we, pick from the Bible? Okay, like maybe, I'm not saying a verse, but maybe any lesson or scenario in the Bible. What can we pick from the Bible, if there's any, that can, motivate these Christians? Okay, because just as you are saying, if you're a Christian, number one, do you believe in God? Mm-hmm. Now, this is not the fear of, the fear that has to do with religion or any spiritual activity. This is vaccine. Okay, it's about my health, and it has nothing to do with spirituality. So can we get anything from the Bible to support what you are saying? Let me see the thought.
I think to go on to that, let me quickly add a little to what Brasam has just said regarding the vaccine certificates and so on. I am particularly concerned about the information that will go on this certificate. Okay. The extent of the information that will be put on it. Otherwise, it is already in place.
Okay.
It is already in place because when I was traveling, my first time of traveling to the UK, I was asked to show certificate of me being free from tuberculosis, yellow fever.
Yellow fever.
Yes, yellow fever and tuberculosis. And all these, I had to go to a special designated clinic in Accra to get, these two certificates before I was allowed in here. Okay. And these certificates contain some information about me.
Right.
Saying that, yes, we've tested him, he hasn't got any tuberculosis, he has no yellow fever. That one aside, nationally, there are a lot of information that are contained in just a number. just a number that is given to every individual in UK, and that is the NI.
National insurance.
Your national insurance number, you have it, and once it's put in a government system, it shows a lot about you.
That's right.
If we agree to those ones, what's the difference? How different are those?
And Doc, even the passport, your passport.
Yeah, your own passport, your traveling passport.
I scanned there's this thing I was doing for an insurance.
Yeah.
And I scanned just the camera lens of my phone.
Yeah.
On the there's a golden label.
Oh, okay.
On the middle bottom section of your passport.
Oh, yeah.
I scanned it there, and my picture, my
everything
address,
came.
my signature, everything popped up on this app.
So we already have it in the system. But what I'm wondering is it going to be something different? Is the information about us going to be different from what we already have and is already circulating in the system?
Right.
So whatever we do, it's not as if this whole issue about coronavirus is different. Mm-hmm. It's not an isolated case, okay? Mm-hmm. It's all that people have not understood the essence of vaccination. Vaccination has not just sprung up. I mean, vaccination has been there since time immemorial, since the era of smallpox. That's when vaccination started. Mm-hmm. Okay, when Jenny vaccinated a little boy with the smallpox virus, and the boy survived it and developed an immune system to it. All that vaccines do is to ply your immune system to develop the right kind of antibodies. Antibodies are our natural soldiers.
That's right.
They're just like the soldiers in the country. What do? They protect the country against enemies, against invaders. So if people are coming, they ring the bell and soldiers are on their alert. Wow. But you need the right kind of soldiers. You cannot go and put the Navy in the air. They will fail.
That's right.
Because the navies will have to fight on the sea,
that's right.
In water.
Yeah.
You need an air force to fight in the air, and you need the army on the ground.
That's right.
So because they have been trained specifically in those ways, it's exactly the same way that vaccines do. And vaccines are very specific. They are very, very specific in their activities. So the vaccines that have been produced are specific for coronavirus. And even with the coronavirus, they are only specific to the spike protein.
Right.
We know that the coronavirus is an RNA virus, and it uses the spikes, which I explained earlier on, as its point of attachment. And that's what it uses to hook onto your body cells, and then it infiltrates the cell and starts causing the damage that it does. So this spike protein has been sequenced. When we say sequenced, what it means in science is that we have looked at the genetic makeup, what come together to form this. You know, the whole body is made up of protein linked together. Yeah. These simple protein, which we call amino acids, they link together to form a chain. If you construct them together, that's what gives us the construct of our DNA and RNAs. So that is what scientists have done, and now we know what the constructs, the genetic makeup of the spike proteins is. So they've manufactured this, and they introduce it into the body, and it plies the body. Remember that you don't only need the spike protein for you to develop COVID-19. You need the entire organism. But it is only the spike protein that has been synthesized. So when it is introduced to you, it goes to form a spike on your cells. And at that point, the body now recognizes, it plies the body that, oh, there is a coronavirus. So it will send the right antibodies to come and fight the coronavirus. But they get there, and it is not coronavirus, it is only the spike. But at that time, they have become activated. So they are ready. It's just like when we heard that, just in 2019, if you remember, somewhere June, in summer, we heard that UK alert level had risen because of terrorism.
Yeah.
So you go to various shops and you would find armed police and soldiers all over. Why? Because they were on the alert, trying to find out if the terrorists were around.
Yeah,
that's exactly what vaccines do. So they ply our body to produce the right kind of antibodies. So when they come and it is not the real coronavirus, they are on their alert, waiting. So as soon as coronavirus enters your body, they're already there and they start their job. Okay?
Wow.
So, and their job is like a lock and key system where the key actually fits exactly into the lock to open it up. So they do that and they are able to engulf the virus and destroy it. If that is not there, what happens is that coronavirus gets into your body, and it is now that the body have to think which antibodies they have to send. So a lot of antibodies will be sent, but they will not be able to do the job as expected. So the body starts vigorously moving the mighty soldiers from all corners to go there. And when you have that, the body itself cannot contain it. Imagine when we are in a country and then we have very, very, very strong terrorists, very armed, and they are coming. The kind of weapons that we have within our arsenal, we should not have released to, let's say, a city of Bradford to fight these terrorists. The nation will be forced to release them because they don't know how they will be able to explore Bradford and beyond.
Sure.
So we need to face them squarely with all our arsenal so that we destroy them. And that's what happens, and it is called cytokine storm. So it does that, and that storm rather kills you.
Yeah.
Because they start and destroy all good cells together with the bad one that have been infected.
Yeah.
And so your lungs begin to damage because the good cells, the alveoli within the cells, have all been destroyed by the body's own natural system. And so the person's breathing begins failing and failing. So we need something that will contain us from the beginning slowly, rather than waiting to test the ability of the body to fight diseases. And that's why vaccine is important. Okay. Now, the other point was about
The passport
and
the link to the Bible.
the link to the Bible. I think it's all about the apocalyptic mindset. It's all about the end time. But human as we are, no matter what we do, there is going to be an end time. One day, this entire world will come to an end. The Bible talks about that.
Yeah.
And do you know, science also talks about that. Science believes in the end of the world, but their belief in the end of the world is slightly different from what we Christians believe.
Sure.
Yes, we believe that one day, the sun, which is the ultimate source of energy, is going to lose its ability to shine. And when that happens, the world comes to an end because all energy takes its source from the sun. Okay. And then the Bible also talks about the end time, where we're going to have a beast, the sign of the beast. A beast representing a real body, representing people who confess with their mouth to worship that beast. People who have declared their allegiance to that beast. They will be given a sign of the mark, so that people will know, recognize them as such. Wow. They will recognize that all these people belong to this person, or they belong to this latter-day Antichrist. So that's what we are all waiting for. my problem is that what is the link between this and a disease? To me, there is a very big gap.
That's right.
There's a very big gap. The Bible did not in any way state or even insinuate, appear to state that it's going to be in the form of a disease. If God has created me and I believe in Him, I worship Him, and I think that I don't want to worship Him again, and He's giving me that free will.
Yeah.
Based on the free will that I have, I will have to declare my support to whatever else I believe.
That's right.
It shouldn't come by accident. It shouldn't come by through a trick. Then I still don't believe in that.
That's right.
I still believe in God, and I still pray to my God.
That's right.
So to me, I find it quite difficult to accept that part of the concept that the coronavirus and everything surrounding it is the mark of the beast and it is the end time. Because this same point has been associated with so many people, so many other, bodies that have, been in existence before. Yeah. Even Muhammad, praise be unto his name, that our brothers of the other religious divide, Muslims, follow, has been associated with this sign of the beast before. This Antichrist thing has been associated before. Not only that, Roman Catholic Pope, has been related to that before, because they said that he's got a hat, one of the mitres that he wears, and there is an inscription in front of it which says Vicarius Filii Dei. And numerologists, people who play with letters and numbers, they have tried their best to relate all the letters within this inscription to something, and they've calculated to get 666, and they think that he is the end time Antichrist. Now, he's still alive. He's not dead, or even if he's dead, still people come and forward, they wear the same mitre. And it has now been transferred to something else. Not only that, even one of American presidents, Ronald Wilson Reagan, was associated with end time Antichrist, because his three names have, interestingly, 6 letters in all of them. So Reynolds was given 6 because it has Reynolds so and so 6. Wilson also had that, also 6, and Reagan also 6. So he was. So which one should we believe? So I just want to encourage people that the end time would come.
That's right.
I believe in that as well, but we don't know when it's going to come. If you are ill and you associate your illness to this end time Antichrist, I am tempted to say that you will die before your actual time to come. Because human as we are like machine, any machine. You can get damaged and you need to be repaired.
That's right.
And that is why this same God that we worship and we believe in has entrusted that wisdom in scientists and in doctors to treat us, to find solution, antidote, remedies to diseases that will inflict us. Scientists are not any miraculous being. They are all of us who have learned and studied the human nature and the things that we have within our environment which can help treat certain ailments for us.
Doc, if you allow me to interject, please, about this issue of the mark of the beast. The way I look at it simply is that if you don't have Christ, you don't need a vaccine to obtain the mark of the beast.
No.
And I know of someone who uprooted his entire family from the UK because of the fear of being forced to take the vaccine.
Right.
So he's now settling back at home, and I hope he's doing well wherever he is. But the point is that having the sign of the mark of the beast cannot be imposed on someone who has the seal of the Holy Spirit. And this is all scriptural. In the book of Ezekiel, I believe, chapter 8 and chapter 9, the Bible talks about the house of Israel being disobedient, and God appears with the angels, and also with a man described to wear a linen, and God instructs the man wearing the linen to go up and put a sign on each of the foreheads of those who have not defile themselves with what the Israelites or the house of Israel have been defiling themselves with.
Yeah.
And he goes around putting a seal on them. Now, the seal of God, it's not dependent on the seal of man. And a vaccine is not a seal, but like Doctor was saying, a medical thing. And doctors have been around for years. Yeah. And scientists have been around for years, and we see them in the Bible. Yeah. Eunuchs, people who specialize in a certain field, because of their ability to read and their ability to dedicate themselves to things, and then they come out with potions to help someone who was sick and all this kind of stuff. So, my brother, I believe the vaccines, or this misconceptions of it having relations with the beast, maybe it's a foreshadowing, but a foreshadowing is not the real event. A foreshadowing is not the real event. So that is all I can make of that.
Excellent. Just to round up, this is the last question. Then, let me ask, just giving you everyone just 2 minutes to talk about this. So, how do you see the entire world in the next 5 years? The global world in the next 5 years.
Right. In terms of the pandemic, the future is still bleak. I think I have to be very honest. Not to put fears in people, but we have to say it as it is. Because even as of now, some people still don't believe in coronavirus. They think it is not a real virus. Yeah. Meanwhile, coronaviruses have been in existence for so many years. They are there, and they will keep recurring and causing, pandemics of this sort if we don't take responsibilities. I'm saying the future is still bleak because still vaccines have not been accepted. National protocols have not been fully followed. There is still disagreement as to who to believe.
That's right.
Is it a mere propaganda that there is something called coronavirus? People are pointing accusing fingers on Bill Gates and Melinda Gates and China and so on and so forth. That aside, there has also been a disproportionate response to the whole pandemic. Nationalistic attitude seems to have engulfed the whole fight against the coronavirus pandemic. But just like my brother Sam said earlier, now we live in a global village. The whole world is like a village. People travel on and on. Within few hours, people are, on different continents. Right. So if we don't look at it from the view of, a global perspective, and we only think about ourselves, that, I have to protect only my people, before you realize somebody has come from somewhere and has infected your people. Now, different variants have occurred on different countries, different continents. So before we know, different variants have come. And we thought that maybe, we had vaccines already. Like I said, vaccines are very specific. So you might have a vaccine for the variant in the UK, but not vaccine for the variant in Brazil. So somebody comes from Brazil and introduces Brazil variant here. So if your vaccine is not very strong enough that will apply the immune system to produce that kind of antibody, then all the effort that you have made will come to naught. So we need a global dialogue, global effort regarding this whole thing. You know that countries that have even agreed to take on the vaccines are even fighting as to how many doses should come to your country, how many must remain here, and who should even have it first, and so on and so forth. So these are all issues that are militating against our efforts in fighting this pandemic. So not until we are able to get to the bottom of all these, the future is still very bleak. Our war to this whole pandemic has not ended.
Wow. Well, let me come to Mr. Nugba.
I don't think there's much more to add to what Doctor has said, but quite frankly, I don't know where the future or what the future holds for us or where the future lies in the next 5 years. Frankly, I don't know. But what I can say is this, that if it's not a global effort, like Doctor is saying, it's ought to not. Because being in the UK doesn't mean anything now. Because someone can be in Ghana and still be working for a company here in the UK. Well, that is how small the world has become. And as we progress as a human race, the world becomes smaller because of the advances in technology and the speed it takes to get from one place to the other. So it needs to be a global effort. And I'll urge every misconceptions to cease, to allow for that, because if one person is transformed in terms of their mindset, that is the entire family. Then that entire family, let's look at the networks that break forth from that family. The friends, the relations that break forth from that family. So, and that affects everything. So I'm hopeful for the future. Okay. I'm hopeful for the future because
everything will be fine.
I'm hopeful for the future to be fine because that is all we can do now. I'm hopeful that everything will, because as Christians and praying Christians, we can't say we are praying and not be hopeful. So I'm hopeful that things will not only return to normal, but return to a better state than we left it.
Okay. All right, viewers, you are still watching the Codedseat. We've come to the end of tonight's show, and I believe you've all learned a lot. You've all learned a lot. The education tonight has been very awesome. Looking at the blend with the scientist and an engineer, you can see what we're doing over here. So we've learned a lot about this whole vaccine. Myself, I've learned a lot. The origination of this, the COVID-19, the origination of this whole COVID-19, how the vaccine came quickly. At least we've had the knowledge about the reason why it came very quick, and why many of us should get vaccinated, especially those who are involved with fear and all those kind of stuff. We need to throw away all these bubbles of fear and get vaccinated so that we can help the world as a globe to push things forward. Now, before we go, Doctor, your final words to the entire world. Your final words.
So, what I would like to say to viewers is that we have to believe and accept that coronaviruses are real. Unfortunately, we are in the midst of a pandemic. We have to follow the national laid down protocols and be responsible. It's all about our own conscience and ability to, accept the fact that this is real. It's taking a lot of lives away before the real end of time. So, and when it gets to our turn of getting the vaccine, we shouldn't be afraid. It's a normal medication, just like any other medication. When you have headache, what medication you take, and we get vaccinated against a lot of diseases. So especially my fellow Africans who believe that this is a conspiracy to eradicate the entire African community. Why would people want to do that? Why would somebody want to remove the entire black race from the surface of the earth? Is it that person who created us? I know nefarious people have embarked on a lot of activities trying to hurt us, but have they succeeded? No. Typical example is the Tuskegee experiment. I mean, a whole lot of things have gone on. So sometimes I do side with black people when they try to resist things, but it's all about, treatment that have been meted to the black populace in the past, and even now how subtle it is in dealing with black people. But the point is that we must also try and learn. We must try and read and know what is going on. There are scientists in our countries back home in Africa. They're carrying on a lot of research. I respect them a lot. So education has to be increased. People have to be educated and get them informed that this is not any other. It's a normal illness, but if we don't combat it, it will kill us.
Identify this COVID-19 virus. COVID-19 virus. Mr. Nugba, your final words.
Oh no! I believe that is it. The expert has spoken. The expert has spoken. Many people think these are not final words, but this is just to add to what I said earlier. Many people think that it does not affect me, right? I'm still working. In many cases, my company is thriving, so there is no need to follow the rules or the protocol set up. But if it hasn't affected you yet, that means it is yet to affect you. The longer we prolong this, the longer it will hurt us. Because if the state is struggling, believe me, it will then transpire to companies. And when it does, it will transpire to individuals. So an economic situation of a state does not rest on just the state. Rests on those carrying the state. And that is the hardworking people.
All right, viewers, we've come to the end of tonight's show, and I believe once again you've learned a lot. This is just the beginning. I believe with time we'll have Dr. and our engineer with us again to dive deeper into different aspects of this whole pandemic, COVID vaccination, and this vaccination passport thing. So don't forget, viewers, to subscribe to our channel. And as I said, just on YouTube, just search for
Sunrise
Reflection. Sorry about that. Just search for Sunrise Reflection. I believe occasionally Doctor posts some videos there that will really help you. In as much as you're trying to be spiritual, sometimes you need to also know the scientific aspect of everything. So try your best possible to subscribe to Sunrise Reflection so that you get updated on any form of information that Doctor will put over there. And also you can follow him on Facebook, Dr. Isaac Ampaabeng. Follow him on Facebook, Dr. Isaac Ampaabeng, and you will have a lot of things to learn. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, and we will see you next time.